Bat Force Radio.
Bat Force Radio is rated M for mature, or should that be immature?
Hey guys, Dustin Wynn.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Paul Dini.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
You're listening to Bat Force Radio.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, and you're listening to Bat Force Radio, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to Bat Force Radio, the Batman and DC podcast with no limits. This week's roundtable includes the Grumpler in New York.
Hey.
We've got the Trunkler here from Chicago.
How's it going?
Bat Force Tom in California.
What's up, everybody?
Tease Us in New York.
Believe.
And I'm Robin Cross in Canada. Okay, during the New 52 in the Justice League Darkseid War story, Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok introduced us to the concept of the existence of three different men having used the identity of the Joker. Fast forward to August 2020, the first of a three-issue series titled Three Jokers hits stores and sells well over 3,000 copies as it quickly goes to a second print. Now we are here in October, just weeks away from the big finale. And here to take us through the process of the story, the reception that we've had so far to the first two issues, the artist and co-creator of the story, Mr. Jason Fabok.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Woo! How's it going?
Thanks for that nice reception, and I like that intro. That was a nice intro there, Robin.
We were just talking before we went on the air here, but I do want to get it on the record as well. Rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. Just happened today. Unfortunate loss.
Yeah.
That's how this year's going. But at least we've got good things like Three Jokers have been happening this year, and like I said, over 300,000 copies. That's insanity. So congrats on that massive reception to something that you've been working so hard on for so long. How much does that make you feel like all the work was justified, having this success?
It does. That number, I don't know if they've actually published like the actual print, like the actual how many have been sold, so I won't say, but it's higher than 300,000, and the numbers just keep coming in with reorders and whatnot, and so it really, like, this was a project that I don't want to start out sounding very negative, but it was a project that I felt that nobody except for Jeff and I and our editors really believed in. I know that sounds weird to say, like, well, Batman and Joker, but I think DC lost interest in this project after we had took so long to do it, and it was kind of something where we felt like we were really fighting against a lot of DC's ideas and DC's vision for this until they started to see the numbers were coming in, and then all of a sudden everything started to really change, and things started to change too. I think once they saw the finished issues, and we started to really get some great reception from people who were able to read it, and so it really does. It feels good to see those numbers. Like I remember having conversations with Jeff, and he was like, I don't know if we might just hit 100,000 on this thing. And he's like, it's an $8 book or $7 book or whatever it was. And he said, it's like, it's just, comics aren't selling like that. I don't know if people will want to buy into that. And I kept on saying, no, Jeff, like this thing's going to hit 300,000 copies. This thing's going to hit, it's going to be big. It's going to do big numbers. Right. And then I remember him like texting me like when we started to get the final order numbers in, and he was just like, I can't believe it. Like he says that, like, I think officially right now, I think it's his highest selling both number, like both amount of copies sold and highest like money making book he's ever done in his career. And so, this is, Jeff's done like a ton of huge books, and for this to be that book, I mean, it's really good. It feels good, and it's like you said, I feel justified in putting the time into this thing, because I really believed in it from day one, and it was hard to get. Sometimes it was hard to get people to see the vision, of what I wanted and what I felt this thing could be. But I mean, the numbers don't lie, and I think it proved that we had a winning formula on this thing, and we had a story to tell, and we're excited for people to check out issue 3, and we think we have a dynamite ending too. So, yeah.
It's great that it was there's a lot of cynicism in the world these days, and a lot of comics can very easily be written off before they even see the light of day. So it's great that you were, especially like you said, after all that time went by, able to keep the interest of so many people, not only with what the story itself would be, but it was a great idea that I think a lot of people really got on board with, to do all of these variant covers that sort of covered the history of the character, taking all these iconic images and making them their own covers, and that everything matched up so well.
Yeah, that I kind of want to go back to the last one there. I probably sounded way too negative about DC saying that they weren't, but you know what? In all honesty, like, that's just how I felt. Like, that's how I felt. I felt that for about 2 years. I just felt I felt like we were just doing our own little thing, and nobody else really cared about it. And so I don't want to lie and just say rosy things. I mean, that's something that I really disagreed with DC Comics on this whole project, was that they just didn't seem like there was much interest in it until it's doing big business, and and now they're behind it, and it's just, I don't know, it's just like part of that could have also been because of some of the changes and shakeups that were going on. Things can slip through the cracks because of that stuff. People were worried about jobs, and my heart goes out to everybody who lost jobs. There was a lot of people that loved and cared about in editorial who were let go, including our editor, Mark Doyle. I mean, Mark's put together some of the best books at DC, and he believed in this book, and he fought for it, and it's sad to see some of that stuff happen, but that's business, and that's how things go. But anyway, going back to the cover thing, this is something that the covers is something that they went with our crazy idea. I have to say, like, in the end, all of the ideas that we had, all of the little things that we wanted ended up happening. So on one hand, I feel like the book was a little bit ignored by them, but at the same time, when we requested something, we had good ideas, and they just said, yeah, that sounds good, let's go for it. And this was one of them. It was they had come to us and they had said, we want to do a retailer incentive program, and we have a list of like 20 different artists that we want to bring in to do covers. And I said no, and I asked Jeff to back me on that, and we argued back and forth with DC, and we said, like, if we do that in this book, it cheapens it. It becomes just like every other Detective Comics 1000 and,
like a
all these. Yeah, it becomes doing a bunch of different Joker faces is kind of a gimmick too. It's what has sold a lot of the book. So I don't ever discount gimmicks, because they do work, and in the end, it's about selling books and making money, so people can keep jobs and whatnot. So I don't get angry at the whole like variant covers and this kind of thing, because it's just part of the business and it keeps people employed and it brings money in, and that's good. That's a good thing. But we didn't want to have, 20 different artists come in and do a cover for 3 Jokers. And part of that was some of my own selfishness, because I said, I worked on this thing for 2.5 years. Like, let it live and die by my artwork. If it's going to live, let it live by my art. If it's going to die, and if it's a failure, then let it be a failure, but just let it be me. And Mark Doyle was the one who ended up saying, like, hey, let's do this. How about we do a bunch of covers of like a Joker photo shoot? So it's like we take one of the Jokers and we have all these like him doing poses, and then we could do like a photo, like I forget what they call them, but like a photo sheet where it shows all of the different photographs, and that would be like a special variant. They kind of did that with the 1 in 450 variant. If you've seen it, it has all the different covers. But then I had come back and I said, well, let's just do the faces of the Joker, and we have these 3 Jokers from 3 different eras, and if you look through their different comics that we're kind of basing things off of, they've dressed up in different outfits in those books. And I said, I think we have enough here that we could do a bunch of different covers. And at that time, the book had just been pushed back to August. It was originally supposed to come out in June. And I said, I got a couple months here. Like, let me do this all by myself. I think I could draw 2 or 3 of these a week. And so they said, it came back. They said, yeah, that sounds really cool. And so I went off and running, and I blasted those things out in a couple weeks, and was really happy with the color work, and it helps sell the book, because like, I don't know, like Robin, maybe you can attest to this because you're in the shop, but I think people might have bought maybe one copy, one issue, and then after reading it, they said, oh, with issue 2 and 3, I'm going to make sure I pre-order all of the covers, but now I got to go back and hunt down all the ones for issue 1,
Yeah, that is definitely happening. And we were lucky in that respect because we ordered so heavy on it. We came to a point where, like, Rogues was the only shop in the city that had any copies of book 1 left by the time book 2 came out, because we had just ordered so massive on it. And we followed that up with the second print. We ordered really heavy on that too.
Yeah, I think like for the city of Windsor, I think all 3 of the shops ordered. I can't speak for Rogues, but I know like Paper Heroes. Scott had said that he ordered. That was the most he's ever ordered of one book. And it broke his record, like by a lot, and he sold out of everything, right? So I was actually kind of scared at first hearing that people had ordered so many, but then it was equally as, it felt really good to hear that all the people were buying them and they were selling out. I kept telling Jeff these things, and he was kind of like, well, we'll have to wait and see, and I think he just wants to keep a more level head about things, whereas I was just like, yeah, we're selling huge numbers, Jeff.
He was being the parent in the situation, like, calm down, lad.
Yes, pretty much. So, but then I had told him, I said, I think issue 2 is going to sell more than issue 1, and it turns out it did. For the initial orders, it outsold issue 1. So I don't know about with reorders, but so I'm interested to see what issue 3 sells. But I think once, I don't know, maybe it depends on the reception. I think we'll have reorders on that one as well. So it's been really awesome to see that. It's like, it's the kind of thing that happens maybe once in your career, and then you'll never really hit this kind of a peak again. But it feels good. And
these days nobody does. Like, how many people working in comics, that have started in, say, the last decade, will ever be able to say that they wrote a book that they wrote or drew a book that sold over 300,000 copies? That just doesn't happen anymore.
No, like I looked at the number. I was looking at some of the numbers, like what are the highest selling books, and there's been some monster ones like Star Wars #1, when Marvel got the thing, the license, sold like over 1 million copies of issue 1. I think what makes this a little unique compared to like, there's been like Detective Comics 1000, I think sold like 500,000 copies. So there has been some really big sellers, but like the difference of our book is that it's just me, Jeff, Brad Anderson, there's just three of us instead of like a whole all-star cast of guys on Detective Comics.
Yeah,
So,
you don't have like, Kevin Smith writing a story in it, that's bringing people in.
Mm-hmm. So I think that makes it a little more special too. And again, like the fact that we didn't have to get 20 different artists to do all these covers. I think the covers and having all these different covers just drawn by myself help to keep a little bit of integrity to the whole thing of having multiple variants. Either way, they were going to do multiple variants, even though we didn't want it. Originally, I just wanted a Joker cover and a Batman, or like a hero cover. I only wanted two covers, kind of like what Doomsday Clock did. They had just two covers. And I said, I think just with two covers, I think we'll sell a lot of copies. And they said, no, we have to do variants. We have to. There's no way, not in today's day and age. We have to do variants. Do you want to sell 100,000 or do you want to sell 200,000? And so I'm glad, I'm very happy that they said, hey, let's do, like, you can draw all of them. That's pretty cool. And even to this day, like, with the second print cover there for issue 1, like, they allowed me to draw it. I was kind of scared they might go off and get somebody else to do it or something like that. But I think that keeps the integrity of the project a bit, and I think it adds to the collector kind of thing. You want to get all those covers and they all fit together. You can put them up on a wall and you could display them or something, and they all fit. It looks good. So yeah.
So well, I'm one of the people that completely lost interest in this project throughout the years, and yeah, I mean, it was a good period of time. But I said, well, like if you look at like sports and stuff, you put together like an all-star team or whatever, that just doesn't pan out, and you're just like, oh man, look good on paper. So I was just like, all right, this also, like years ago, I was in the store buying Killing Joke off the rack. So I was just like, man, I don't know if they should go back to, whatever. I don't know. I don't like when they touch old stories. And then I've been buying, what I've been doing during the pandemic is buying like Batman in particular on digital, and then I'll go, later on the next week or whatever and buy my books. So I bought it, the first issue on digital, and I was like, okay, like these guys, they delivered. Like, this book is, what it's supposed to be on paper. Like, you guys went above and beyond. And so then I went and picked up, 2 covers, which I was like, I'm not into the whole cover thing. I was like, I'll just buy one. I was like, oh shit, there's 2 good ones. Oh, fuck it, I'll buy 2. Yeah, I mean, just for the period of time, but I mean, you guys, I lost interest, it's just whatever, but you guys really, book 1 and 2 really just, delivered above and beyond.
And we call him the Grumpler for a reason. Not everybody wins over the Grumpler, so you guys did something.
That's great.
The Killing Joke was such a, my God, iconic story, and I just hate when people revisit these things, and I mean,
because it's so seldom done right.
Yeah,
I know. I think that's why we're a little sensitive about that idea.
And then to what you guys did with, I don't know if it's okay to say, like, to merge the Killing Joke and A Death in the Family, and to make it one thing, that was mind blowing in itself. So.
Yeah, like we originally didn't set out to kind of do like a Killing Joke thing. Like, originally it was just like, yeah, we're just going to tell like a Batman story. And then it wasn't until a little later that Jeff kind of had said, like, I really want to kind of focus in more on the Killing Joke. And it actually came about because of the covers. I had said, well, I had a couple different ideas for the covers, and And he just said, no, let's just do it should look like the Killing Joke. It should just be a big Joker face smiling at you. And we have 3 Jokers, so we'll do 1 face for each book. They're big, they're in your face. And I said, do you really? And he's like, and we'll even use the same font for the logo. And I was like, well, okay, like that's I mean, that's pretty gutsy. I don't know if I'm worthy of it. And he's like, no, he's like, we're gonna do it. And he's like, I don't think, like, he knew that we wouldn't stick to it 100%, but we would kind of deviate from it as we went along in the story. But because like Killing Joke isn't all 9-panel grids, we've kept to more of a 9-panel grid just because we wanted a lot of story in these 48 pages. So we just kept to it, and I liked the flow of it. But in the end, even up right to the end, like, we had the Killing Joke font, and then I had kind of decided at the last second, after seeing a couple different logos, I actually took like 3 logos and kind of merged them together and said, this is the logo. Like, let's do something like this. And just to kind of change it just a little bit, so it wasn't 100% Killing Joke. But I don't know, like, I don't mind wearing my, like, some artists, they'll look at this, they probably look at this and go, oh, you guys are just ripping off Killing Joke, that blah blah blah. Like, Jeff ripped off Doomsday Clock, or Watchmen with Doomsday Clock. But like, I kind of always have seen it like, I don't mind wearing my influences on my sleeve, and I like honoring history and kind of playing off of that. I like that in music. Like, a lot of the bands I listen to sound or have similar sounds to classic bands, and it's because I like those classic bands that I liked in these newer bands too, you know. So like, I don't mind that, and I don't, you know, some people might not like it, but at the same time, like, it's this is a business about selling books, and we've sold a ton of books. So like, whatever we're doing, it's hitting the right chord with the like right from the beginning, I said, Jeff, we need to sell this book to not only to, you know, current readers, but we want to bring in readers who haven't read who have maybe left comics, people who would look at this book and, like, they hear about it and they see the cover and it reminds them of an older kind of, maybe even, dare I say, better era of comics, and they come into the store and they buy it. And that's really what I feel like that's kind of like, I don't know if DC just doesn't see it, but like, from a business standpoint, there's such a money market when it comes to that crowd. Like, these are the guys who you see at Comic Cons. They're older guys in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they have a disposable income, and they're the ones who are buying the original art from me. They're the ones who are buying prints, and they want to get stuff signed, and they're supporting all of these great artists. And it's like, but a lot of these guys feel like the comic book industry doesn't aim their books at them. And I sit there and I think, like, why aren't you aiming books at them? Look at this book. We aimed it at them, and look at the numbers that we're doing. You know, we hit that market, and we've been able to crack it. And if companies are too foolish to see that and go after it, then you know what? Then the comic book industry is going to die. Like, there's money there. There's money to be had in comic books, but it's like you know, again, like, I mean, you could tell I'm a little bit. I don't know if I'm a little bit bitter about how things have gone the last couple years, like, but especially with my career and things like that. And my eyes have been open to a lot of things that are going on, and I don't understand how you there's so much money out there that's just being left on the table because the comic book industry doesn't seem to want to make money where the money is. And this book hit it. And you know what? The next book that we have an idea to do is going to hit it again. And but we have to see if we're even going to go there just yet. We're waiting to see how things go with issue 3, and then Jeff, we're kind of taking a little break right now, and then we're going to see where it goes, and we're going to make up our mind as to what we do next based on that. So. Again, like, I'm blown away by the numbers, and I'm very thankful for all the people who have bought the book and have bought multiple copies of it. And that's what we wanted. We really wanted to bring in people, young and old, not too young because it's kind of a mature book, but current comic book collectors. We wanted to give them something that they would really love and enjoy, and also to the older fans, we wanted to bring them in and have them support the book too. And so I think we did that.
Wanted to touch on that since you brought it up. What was yours and John's initial feelings about the book coming out right around this pandemic? Like you said, I mean, you're aiming the book at adults that had that kind of disposable income, but then all of a sudden COVID hits, and then but your sales still skyrocketed and still beat expectations. Were you guys kind of nervous at first about, well, maybe because of the pandemic that's going on, it might have not been as successful as you guys thought it would be initially?
Well, originally the book was going to be released. Originally we had pushed we wanted issue 1 to come out on April 1st. That was the original plan. And yeah, for April Fool's Day. And we had 20 different answers from DC as to why we couldn't publish that day. Turns out that was a good thing, because that's when all the stores closed. Like, it was around that time when everything kind of closed down, right?
I think that was actually the day that was the first week that there weren't comics.
Yeah, so it's funny, like, if we would have done that, we wouldn't have had all these different covers. It would have been a different beast. We even added things to the ending of issue 3 that came after that date. So, the book would have been a different book, actually. And I remember having a conversation, and Jeff and I were very angry that DC would not publish the book on April 1st. Like, when we're talking about this was probably back in January or so. But we were very angry. And then out of that anger came all of these ideas that really made the ending of issue 3, took it up like 20 notches. And we went back and we ended up putting some threads through the first issue and the second issue to help balance everything out. And it really ended up helping make the book better because of that. And then it was moved to like June or July something. And at that point I was thinking, that's what I was angry when they moved the book to August, because I thought that July date would have done monster numbers, because stores were kind of getting back in and people are hungry to spend money. They've been cooped up. They're going to want to get out and spend some money. And I mean, you saw that with the video game industry. Like, they were selling out of stuff like you wouldn't believe, people were just buying the physical. You couldn't find physical copies of games because people were just buying them off of the racks and whatnot. And so, but then, it got pushed back to August. And because of that, we were able to do the covers. And one thing that Jeff and I kept saying to ourselves or to each other was, everything happens for a reason, and everything is happening for a reason. And we just need to be patient, and we need to just wait, and it's going to come out when it comes out, and we feel we have a good product, and we just got to stay positive. And then that's what happened. So everything ended up working out. I think it would have still sold some big numbers if it would have come out in July, but because of because of that delay, we were able to do the extra covers, and it ended up working out great for the book in the end. So, yeah, I mean, it was you wonder what things would have been like if it would have been actually, if it was, like I said, if it was published in April, it would have been a different book. It would have been a different story, different ending at least,
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
For any listeners that might not know, if you can just give like a quick recap of how this idea come about between you and Jeff, for anybody who might not know or be up to date on how this Three Jokers tale came to fruition, or how it even began.
Yeah, so when we were working on Darkseid War back in 2016, Jeff had this idea about when Joker was when he gets on the Mobius chair, he asks the chair, like, what's the Joker's name? I forget what he asks to the chair, but and then he gets an answer, and then at the end he reveals that the chair told him that there were 3 Jokers, and so that was kind of the beginning of the story. And originally we were actually going to do this as like a Justice League story, and it was going to be the next kind of like story arc we were going to do after Darkseid War. But then DC changed the publishing schedule to bi-weekly, and Jeff and I had a conversation, and I said, like at that point I was pretty burnt out, and I was like, I don't know if I can do a bi-weekly. Like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, it's going to be a lot more pressure, and I don't know if we can tell the best stories that we want to tell. And so we both decided. He just said, all right, well, if you don't want to do Justice League, then I don't want to do it either, because I want to just do the book with you. And so he's like, let's, we'll go do something else. And so we both walked off Justice League at that point. And then the idea kind of just sat there, and Jeff got busy with movie stuff, and I was kind of just like left wandering for a bit. And I did a couple projects, but it took a couple years for us to come back together on this. And at one point, like, there was a couple points when we were like, I don't even think this thing is going to happen. DC was angry at me because I wouldn't take Batman. They wanted, after David Finch had left Batman, they really wanted me to come and take over Batman. And I kept saying, I can't do Batman until I do 3 Jokers, because if I do Batman, I feel it's going to cheapen doing 3 Jokers. I said, 3 Jokers has to be the next Batman project. And I kept saying, like, give me something else. Like, hook me up with somebody else and let's create a book, or let's do a different character or whatever. And it just seemed like all they really wanted me on was Batman, and I kept saying no. And I think that really made them, well, I don't know about angry, but it made them frustrated. But from my perspective, I had to do, like, 3 Jokers had to happen. And because I believed in the story. And along the way, Jeff and I had kind of, after talking a couple times, we kind of realized, like, let's just do it as a Batman story, and let's do it as a standalone kind of Batman book. And we're going to evolve a couple characters. At one point, Harley Quinn was in there. We decided to ditch her after a while. It just became too many characters. And like I said, originally it was a Justice League story, but then I said, I think it would work better just as a Batman standalone. And then eventually Jeff told me his ending of what the ending of 3 Jokers was, and I had the exact same ending, like totally separate from each other. We both had the same ending. And I had said, like, Jeff, like, if I could ever draw or write one Batman story, that would have been a story about that, and that would be the ending. And so that's when I knew, like, at that point I felt like it was meant to be. It was like, no, this is something different. Like, this is a different beast, and this book has to get made. And, even Jeff admits to me, he told me on the phone a couple of weeks back when issue 1 came out, he said, thank you for hounding me to do this book. Because I don't think Jeff really saw it as, even Jeff, I think at some points didn't really see it as something necessary to do. And he was working on all these other things. And I kept saying, no, we got to do 3 Jokers. You got to do it. And I don't know if he really, maybe his heart wasn't 100% into it at the time. But then eventually he just kind of, it's like, I think maybe he didn't really know exactly the story where he wanted to go. But then all of a sudden, like, he tells me sometimes, like, it'll just be like it's like it's something just gets downloaded into his head. And then all of a sudden all the pieces come together and he knows what he wants to do. And so this would have been now probably about 3 years ago. It was right before my daughter was born. I went down to LA and we had a meeting, and we had this big he has this big whiteboard in his office this was at the DC offices. And so he kind of like in point form, page by page, sketched out the entire book. Like issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, and it was me and Jeff and Mark Doyle and Amadeo Totoro, who's our other editor. And the four of us sat in this room and just bounced ideas, and he just kind of spelled it all out. And by the end of that, I just felt so confident in this book. And then, at that point, that was, it still took a while for even after that, for the book to start actually to start. Like, I at one point I was drawing like, 5 pages and then waiting a couple even months for more pages to come in. And so it was kind of slow going. And that's why like it took so long. Like Jeff was busy doing all this movie stuff. And I was okay with not working like a crazy person either. I mean, I had a lot of time off and I had a lot of good time like with my kids, and I also went back. That first issue of Three Jokers, I think, is like near perfect for my because I literally spent a year drawing one 50-page issue, right? Like I would go back and I would retweak pages, and then issue 2 and 3 happened really quick. Like those ones, I drew those fairly quickly after issue 1, but it took a while, but we were confident in our story, and we kept saying like, let's really make this thing something that is going to be that people are going to like and that they're going to want to read, not only now but also into the future. And that was kind of our goal with Dark Side War. It was like, let's make something that you could read in the future and not really have to know all of the ins and outs of DC continuity. You could just jump in and you could read it. Because if like Dark Side War took place during the DCU YOU era, where there was like Superman had no powers and Batman was Jim Gordon and Green Lantern had some power battery thing he had to carry around, and we were like, what? Like if we do that, then that's going to date our book. And so instead we just said, let's just go with the classic costumes and let's just do kind of an end cap to the new 52, and so that's what we did. And so the same thing with this. And I mean, this goes to the whole, like, is it in continuity question? In our minds, this book is in continuity, but we've also just kind of decided, like, you know what, like, let's just make this thing a standalone book, because we want people to come in. Most people have knowledge of who Batman is, who Barbara Gordon is. Maybe they'll know who Jason Todd is. Most comic book fans would know, but I think people off the street might not necessarily know. And so we tried to explain a little bit about him in the story. And then you know who the Joker is, you know some things about Jin, and you can just jump into this book. You don't, like, Alfred's alive, and a lot of people were giving us, I saw some negative stuff online about, how can Alfred be alive? Well, at the time he was alive when we started the book. And then he died. And we were Jeff, we actually even thought about changing it. And in the end, we just decided, like, you know what? Like, most people know that Alfred is with Batman. And if in 20 years, Alfred will be alive again. And so, like in a year, Alfred will probably be alive again. You know what I mean? Like, that's how comics are.
Hope so.
Yeah. So like, why not just like, let's just set it in its own sort of thing. It's within current continuity, but at the same time, we want it to feel a little classic, like it could exist in multiple different eras. And you kind of like how Killing Joke is. Killing Joke kind of, you can read it today and you still kind of get this timelessness from it. That's kind of what we wanted to go for. Yeah. So I don't know if I question, but
that's what one of the things I mentioned before you came on, Jay, was about the costumes. Like, I really liked everybody's costume. I thought came out great, especially Red Hood. And I'm not a Red Hood fan, but like I like how his suit is kind of sort of like the Robin suit, or it has the Robin tunic sort of deal, and the R on the buckle, and I enjoyed everybody's suit. Even the Joker's 3 different outfits or whatever.
Yeah, that was something that came right back from the beginning again too. It was like, when we discussed, I said, number one, I had said to Jeff, like, I want to do different costumes for the characters. I just want to have something that maybe is just for this book and that's it. And so, him and I went back and forth, like with Batgirl, like eventually one day I'll show it, but I did a whole bunch of different Batgirl takes. Like purple costume versions, and purple and yellow, and purple and black, and then gray and black, and even up to the last minute, like Batgirl's cowl and cape, back of her cape was supposed to be like a dark purple, but then when we saw it in color in the book, I just felt like it didn't work, and I just said, let's just go with the black, just the black on black, and I felt like that worked the best. And again, like that costume is because Jeff just said, let's just do the black on black version with the yellow. He said, like, that's like the one that everybody likes, so let's just do that. And so I said, yeah, okay. And then, with Red Hood, he wanted that one to be a little different. He's like, he's called Red Hood, but he doesn't have any red in his costume except for his helmet. And he's like, he actually had pointed towards Jim Lee's design from Hush when the Red Hood gets resurrected, but he's like clay-faced or whatever. Kind of like that costume was like a Robin costume, and he said, let's do that. It's like a black version of the Robin costume. And then he said, but make the shirt red so that it shows through the black jacket. And so, Jeff's got a really good artistic eye for this kind of stuff too. And so, he kind of pointed things here and there, like, let's go this direction, or let's try that. And, in the end, I feel like we got something that's cool and works for our book. And I'm happy with that.
There are a couple things I want to make sure I touch on here before I forget. One, for anyone who's wondering why we aren't going spoilers on the story here, after issue 3 comes out, we will do another episode where we will go full spoilers through the whole story, and Jay will sort of guide us through everything that they were doing with the story. So that will be coming later. Second, we were talking about the point where you were turning down doing a run on the main Batman title. And I'm sure that DC was as frustrated as you expect, because I remember the day that you told me you had turned it down, and I was frustrated. But I totally understood when you said, but I can't do that because Jeff and I are going to do this book, and it's going to make it something special that I haven't been doing other Batman books before it. And the cool thing that we got in the interim of that, because you weren't working on something else, was we got your Swamp Thing book with Tom, which was excellent.
Nice.
Yeah, that Swamp Thing came about because they said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to do Swamp Thing. They were trying to find something that I could do while I was waiting. That was, near about the point when we were starting to really think about Three Jokers. So that came about. There was the button, that was kind of a fun one-shot kind of thing. And then, but I didn't really do much like during that time period. It was very slow going, and I was okay with that at that point. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and it kept everyone sort of waiting for more work from you. So that was probably a plus as far as Three Jokers is concerned too. The other thing I wanted to get to, we've talked a lot about the work that you and Jeff were putting into this. I just want to point out that I hope you do not work with a colorist who is not Brad Anderson, because the work that you guys do together, I don't see anyone else coming in and topping what Brad does on your work.
Yeah, sadly, colorists don't get a fair shake a lot of the times. They're kind of the forgotten, part of the team, and something that I wanted to make sure like his name was on the front cover, and that he was going to get the accolades that he deserves, because Brad, I mean, I put Brad through through so much, like even though we were working way ahead of schedule, like literally we had to hand in issue 2 and 3 on the same day, and we were working to the last second I was sending him tweaks and changes to panels and pages. He was going back and he was recoloring things, and I was just like, let's change this, let's change that. And he was such a good sport. It was really actually kind of fun because Jeff was sending in new script pages, and I was sending in new artwork over to Brad, and Brad was sending in new colors, and we were tweaking this and tweaking that. And it was like, Brad, I don't want to have to redraw this. Can you just put this in this panel? We need something. Oh, we need to put this in this panel instead of this. And it was back and forth until 1 o'clock in the morning kind of thing, until we finally handed in those final issues. But, Brad, he worked his butt off on this thing, and he put his heart and his soul into it too. And as long as I'm working in comics, I really don't want to work with anybody else but Brad. I mean, he's tremendous. You should see if you could reach out and have him on the show too, because I'm sure for a colorists have a different perspective on things than an artist does and as a writer does. So it would be great to get him on the show sometime, or get the both of us, and we can just talk about art and that kind of thing process.
Yeah,
so.
I did send Brad a message, but I don't think he's seen it so far. But yeah, the work that you got, I don't know how you put some of these things together so quickly. You referenced being able to do a couple of these covers in a week. I remember when issue 1 had just come out, and you found out that it was going to a second print, and at that point you didn't know yet what the second print was going to be, if they were just going to do a recolor of the first cover, or if they would let you do another one. But then when they gave you the green light to do another Joker for the second print cover, I think it was on a Wednesday maybe that you showed me the layout of what would be the second print cover. So it was, just your layout of Joker with the Joker shark puppet on his hand. And I want to say it was max 2 days later that you showed me the completed cover. You had finished it and Brad had already colored it, and it was max 2 days later. And I don't know how you guys get that done so fast.
Well, some of that stuff is we had to have it done literally in 2 days. It was no, hey, guess what, guys? Second print, yay! But now I need to cover in 2 days. And so, but you know what? Brad is generally fast on everything. If I send him a cover, or I send him the inks or whatever, and he turns it around pretty quick. And, I think it's just it's kind of like me. If I get excited about drawing something, then I'm able to, when they said hey, let's do a second print cover, once I figured out the idea, then I got excited and I was able to do it pretty quick. The worst is when you have to draw a cover and you don't want to draw the cover. You get asked by a different editor or something to do a cover for a book that you really don't care about, but you just need to do something. So those ones are slogs. Whereas with this Joker thing, it was oh yeah, as soon as you get an idea, you're just off and running. And so I think he's probably the same. He gets the inks in and he goes, oh man, this is exciting. And then he just probably does it. He just sits down and colors it. And he gets excited about it too, because he did that. He's done that with all of those covers. I was sending him inks and he was sending me back the cover, colored immediately almost. So he's a tremendous artist in his own right, and he works really, really hard. He's super dependable, and he fights for the book, and he puts his heart and his soul into every book that he does. And he deserves accolades for that, and he gets that. I think a lot of people they notice that, because you give this book to somebody else, I don't think they would have got they would have had the right kind of fit for it. He just understands what I want. And I'm able to kind of say hey, what if you try this? Or sometimes he'll just do something. It's wow, I never thought of that, but man, that looks great. So yeah, he's excellent.
Yeah, there's a look and a depth to the way he colors. Like, for anyone who isn't aware of Brad's work, he also colored Gary Frank's work in Doomsday Clock, and I think that's kind of a cool thing. It makes this book, for anyone who's read Doomsday Clock, this one visually has a familiarity to Doomsday Clock. Which is a cool connection to have, because Jeff also wrote Doomsday Clock, and yeah, just Brad's work makes this interesting bridge between the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one thing that Brad really does well, and the reason why I want, like, there was a while there when I was early in my career, I was really hunting for a colorist, and the reason why I wanted Brad, it was because of his work with Gary. And the one thing that really sold me on his work is Brad understands 2-point lighting. So a lot of colorists, like, if you notice, like, I'm looking through the issue 2 right now, like, every time I draw a face, the shadowed side of a face, I always leave a rim light, which means that there's a light. In filming, it would be a light kind of from behind and pointed from behind into the back kind of the character's head, so that on the side that's the shadowed side, you'll get a rim light around the features of the face or the body or whatever, and it adds depth. And you could give my work to 10 different colorists, and a lot of them, it's amazing, but a lot of them would not pick up the rim light. They would just color that flat, the same color as everything else, and they would have lighting from one angle, and that's it. And Brad, I noticed right from the beginning with Gary Frank, he always added the rim light, and that little thing sold me on him. And I add it to every single panel because it makes the character look more three-dimensional by just adding that rim light. And it's something that you kind of have to fight with and learn how to do, because now you're operating with a 2-point light system instead of just a 1-point light. And it's tough, but Gary Frank is a master of it. And a lot of times I just look at what he's done and I kind of rip him off, to be honest with you. Other times I actually have used like 3D models and stuff and lit like a 3D model head, lit it with 2 lights in like a 3D program, just to see how the light reacts to it, and then use that as a reference. But for artists out there, I really feel like it's an important thing to do, and it really makes the work stand out, especially if you're going to use a lot of heavy shadows. It was something, Dave Finch taught me that too. Like, he likes to use that. And so, that was the one thing that sold me on Brad, and I love it. Every single time he does it, it fills me with joy when I see those panels and with a 2-point light going on. It just, as an artist, it just like, it's like, yes, like, that's what I want. That's what I want. I want my art to look like that. So, he just gets it.
I feel like it gives it a whole new level of emotion too. Like, it kind of, every cover seems like it's a kind of like a mugshot too, like it's a little darker, and really just kind of just illuminates, and just the 2 light sources kind of just isolate and borders the reaction, the facial expressions of each character.
Yeah, like, especially with the covers with the pink light, like I had said right from the beginning, I'd always envisioned it with this pink light coming from one side, and it ties all the covers together as well, to have the lighting all similar, and that there's this pink rim light coming off from one side, and it just gives it a 3-dimensionality that you don't get if it was just colored flat. You wouldn't get that, right? It's a cool technique.
I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you before, Jay. Were you overall comfortable with this being a 3-book series? Like, did you feel like you wanted to go a little further, or was 3 enough for you with the amount of artwork that you did? And because to me, I feel like I think that is a testament to the time that you spent on it, but every page and panel is amazing, and you want to stop and look at everything. But I was initially thinking when I finished the second one, like the fact that it's 3, like, did you want to do more, or did you feel like you kind of hit your ground? The story.
I think if we didn't, like, when we originally laid out the whole story, we felt like we had a complete story from front to back. And because the book is told in 9-panel grids, there's a lot of storytelling that you can do with that. You know, each page has a lot going on, even little emotional beats and a little kind of gestures and stuff like that you couldn't do if you just had a 4-panel widescreen kind of storytelling grid, you know. So right from the beginning, like, we felt like we had 3 issues, we had a complete story, and we knew that's what we wanted to do. Maybe if these books were 20 pagers, then maybe you'd be like, yeah, 3 issues, that's not enough. But I think 3 48-page issues, I think, is good. And I don't know, like, we'll have to see how people dig the ending. Like, we feel like we have an ending that kind of wraps everything up, and I'm sure some people won't like it. Some people will like it. The people will debate it and all that kind of stuff, but that's kind of what you want. And we're happy with it. Jeff believes that issue 3 of 3 Jokers is the best single issue of comics he's ever written. Like, he really, like, when he, like, he's very confident in that last issue, and he really feels like the emotion and all this stuff, he really feels like the visual and, like, linking back to different things. He's really excited about issue 3 and really feels like it's the best book he's ever written, the best single book he's ever written. And so, we'll see how that goes. And I was really nervous for issue 2 because I knew that issue 2 didn't have the big shocker ending like issue 1 did. But I'm really confident with issue 3. I was confident with issue 1. I knew people would like the big shocker. Issue 2, I knew it was a middle part of a story, and it's kind of setting things up for the third act. And then now, like, with issue 3, like, we have, like, that last, like, the last, like, 10 pages of issue 3 is just going to be, like, I think people are going to remember all kinds of stuff, and it's not what you think. I can't wait till people read it. It's not like you think we're going one, like, anyway, I don't want to say it, but, like, I'll be interested. I'm interested to see the reaction of it, because I think it could be, people could love it, they could hate it, but I really feel if people think about the story and what happens at the end, I really think that they'll see that it's something really cool, like, that's never been done before. So
I'm at the point where I'll take your word for it, because
well,
first 2 issues are outrageous. So.
You've told me the reactions of a couple certain people to reading the conclusion of the story, and that really leads me to believe that you're telling people exactly what the case is going to be when they get to the end.